Friday the 21st of August. That's when the Premier League actually comes back this season, a full week later than usual, pushed back because the World Cup ran through the middle of the summer instead of sitting quietly between seasons the way it normally does. 10 matches, 20 clubs, 4 days. And it opens the way it always opens when there's a champion to defend. At home, under the lights, with the trophy still fresh. Arsenal host Coventry City at the Emirates on Friday night, the reigning Premier League champions against a club playing top-flight football for the first time in 25 years. Hold that pairing, because it's not really the story of the weekend, it's the frame around the story. 5 days before a ball was even kicked in anger, Arsenal and Manchester City played the Community Shield in Cardiff, at the Principality Stadium, and it went 3-0. Riccardo Calafiori scored inside the first minute, meeting a Miles Lewis-Skelly pass, and finishing low into the corner. Kai Havertz doubled it before half-time, and Martin Odegaard, the man of the match, added a third 3 minutes into the second half. It was City's heaviest defeat in a season curtain raiser since 2014, and it happened to be Enzo Maresca's first competitive match in charge of the club. With Rodri absent for the whole afternoon, still working back from minor back surgery, his long-term future at the club the subject of transfer talk out of Spain all summer. None of that decides anything. A preseason exhibition never does, and City will know that better than anyone. But it means their actual opener, at home to Bournemouth, now carries a question mark that wasn't there back in June, when Maresca's appointment was still being sold as an exciting new chapter rather than a rebuild under scrutiny. And that question mark is really the story of this Matchday 1, once you step back from the individual results. Look across the fixture list and you'll find something that doesn't happen very often. 5 clubs from the traditional upper half of the table are sending out a new manager for his first competitive Premier League match, all inside the same 4-day window. Not a mid-season appointment easing in against a struggling side. Not a caretaker finding his feet in December. 5 actual season openers, 5 reputations on the line at once, and every one of them at a club used to being judged by trophies rather than performances. Enzo Maresca, who won the Club World Cup with Chelsea last year before this move, takes Manchester City into Sunday's home match against Bournemouth, replacing Pep Guardiola after a trophy-laden decade in charge. Andoni Iraola, who spent 3 seasons turning Bournemouth into one of the most watchable mid-table sides in the country, now has Liverpool, and his first league match in charge is away at Newcastle on Sunday, without Mohamed Salah, Ibrahima Konaté, or Andy Robertson, all of whom left Anfield as free agents this summer. Xabi Alonso, who inherits a Chelsea side that sacked 2 managers inside 4 months last season, gets a West London derby at Fulham to open his account, in the match that closes out the round on Monday night. Roberto De Zerbi returns to English football at Tottenham, back in the country where he first made his name at Brighton before a spell in France with Marseille, and starts away at Brentford on Saturday. And at Manchester United, Michael Carrick isn't new to the building at all, but this is his first ball kicked as permanent manager, rather than caretaker, on the road at Hull City on Saturday morning, after steadying things following Ruben Amorim's exit last season. 5 different clubs, 5 different rebuilds, 5 first impressions, all landing before the weekend is even out. That is not the framing most previews will use this week, because most previews are still built around the old habit of ranking fixtures by how many Big Six names appear in them. But it is the pattern the fixture list is actually built around this year, whether the broadcasters lead with it or not, and it's the lens worth watching the whole round through. Friday, Emirates Stadium, Arsenal versus Coventry City. Arsenal open as champions, and after that Community Shield performance, expectations around the Emirates are not modest. Christos Tzolis, signed from Club Brugge as cover and eventual competition on the left, and Bruno Guimaraes, arriving from Newcastle for a fee in the region of £75 million to reshape the midfield, will both be looking to open their competitive accounts for the club. Arsenal do go into the campaign managing an injury to William Saliba, whose back problem could keep their first-choice centre-back out for months, but Mikel Arteta has already moved to cover the gap, agreeing a deal for Aston Villa's Ezri Konsa to partner Gabriel Magalhaes in defence. Coventry arrive under Frank Lampard, 25 years removed from their last top-flight season, having won last season's championship by 11 clear points. Nobody sensible expects an upset here. The more interesting question is smaller. How many of Coventry's promotion-winning habits, the compact shape, the physical set-piece threat that has carried them since Lampard took over, survive first contact with a team that just took apart the FA Cup holders inside 2 minutes? Saturday brings 5 matches inside a few hours of each other, and honestly, it's the day with the most going on. Start with Hull City hosting Manchester United, which is an odd kind of pressure fixture for both sides. Hull are back in the top flight for the first time in a decade, and they got there the hard way. 6th place, a grind past Millwall in the playoff semi-final, then a stoppage-time Ollie McBurney goal to see off Middlesbrough in the final. Now they're straight into a Manchester United side trying to prove that Carrick's second half of last season was the start of something, not a caretaker bounce that fades once the job's made permanent on paper. His summer rebuild of the midfield, Youri Tielemans in from Aston Villa, Andre Santos from Chelsea, both arriving to replace the departed Casemiro, gets its first real test away from home. Elsewhere at the same time, Everton host Crystal Palace, 2 sides who will both fancy building on last season and pushing higher up the table this time round. Nothing especially dramatic there on paper, but worth a glance. Ipswich Town welcomes Sunderland, and this one's worth watching, for reasons that have nothing to do with either club changing manager. Both clubs were promoted into the Premier League a year apart, and Sunderland leaned hard on smart recruitment, Granit Xhaka's arrival as captain-chief among it, to turn their promotion campaign into a season that actually ended in survival. That's exactly the template Ipswich will be hoping to borrow from, rather than repeat their own earlier struggles at this level. Nottingham Forest face Leeds United, with Forest still adjusting to life without Elliot Anderson, sold to Manchester City this summer, in a deal that made him City's record signing. He'll be lining up on the opposite side of all these storylines entirely come Sunday. And Brentford host Tottenham in De Zerbi's first match in charge, a fixture that should tell us plenty about how quickly his ideas resettle into a Premier League dressing room that's already worked through several different head coaches in just the last few years. New arrivals like Sandro Tonali and Mateus Fernandes will need to adapt to his methods fast. Sunday is City's day, and Liverpool's at the same time, plus one more fixture worth a mention. Manchester City host Bournemouth at the Etihad for the true kickoff of the Maresca era, minus the Community Shield gloss, minus Rodri too, whose continued absence leaves a genuine hole for a manager still working out how to replace Guardiola's control of midfield with a squad that isn't fully his own yet. Elliot Anderson, City's club record signing from Nottingham Forest this summer, is expected to carry more of that creative burden than any debutant reasonably should. At the same time, up at St. James's Park, Newcastle host Liverpool, and it's worth sitting with just how different this Liverpool lineup looks from the one that finished last season. Salah gone, Konaté gone, Robertson gone, replaced for now by names most casual viewers won't recognize yet. Jeremy Jacquet in defense, Victor Munoz on the wing, Ronald Araujo in on loan from Barcelona. Newcastle, for their part, have sold their own captain, Bruno Guimaraes, to Arsenal this summer and brought in a wave of far less familiar faces to replace him. So both benches on Tyneside will effectively be watching 2 clubs try to function without the player who used to run the middle of the pitch. Brighton's home game against Aston Villa rounds out the day, and it's got its own quiet subplot. Villa arrive having lost Morgan Rogers to Chelsea this summer, one more thread in a West London rebuild that gets its proper airing on Monday night. Monday night closes the roundout, Fulham versus Chelsea, a short trip across West London for Xabi Alonso's first Premier League match in charge of the Blues. Morgan Rogers, signed from Aston Villa for a fee reported north of £100 million and now Chelsea's record signing, lines up alongside a summer of further spending in Maxence Lacroix, Marco Palestra, and Giovanni Quenda, which gives some indication of how much the club has backed its new manager after last season's chaos, when Chelsea went through Enzo Maresca and Liam Rosenior in the space of 4 months. Whether that outlay looks coherent inside 90 minutes of actual first-team football, rather than pre-season friendlies against weaker opposition, is a completely different question, and it's the one Alonso will be judged on from the opening whistle. Somewhere in among 6 clubs simultaneously changing manager, it would be easy to forget the 3 that are simply trying to survive: Coventry, Ipswich, and Hull. Between them, they account 3 of the 10 fixtures across the opening weekend, and history is not particularly kind to newly promoted trios in their first month back. But this season's group at least arrives with real pedigree behind the recruitment. Lampard's Coventry won their division outright. Hull ground their way up through the playoffs the traditional way after finishing 6th, and Ipswich, who finished 2nd, already know exactly what awaits them, having been through this level of football only recently. It has no bearing on how Coventry, Ipswich, or Hull actually got here, but it's a reminder that even the competition underneath this one is being reshaped at the same time. Here's the part worth being honest about before a ball is kicked. Nothing that happens across these 10 matches will decide the title race. Treating any single result as proof of anything bigger is exactly the kind of overreaction that Matchday 1 tends to invite, and almost never deserves. Arsenal beating Coventry, if it happens, tells you almost nothing you didn't already know 8 days ago in Cardiff. What's genuinely open, in a way it hasn't been for several seasons at once, is how quickly 5 new managers start to look like themselves, rather than like the men they replaced. Maresca's already had 90 minutes that went about as badly as an opening 90 minutes can go. Iraola, Alonso, De Zerbi, and Carrick haven't had theirs yet, and none of the 4 inherited a squad built entirely around their own ideas. That's the actual gap this particular weekend can close, or widen further. Not who wins the league in May. Just who, after a single competitive match, already looks like they know exactly what they signed up for, and who looks like they're playing catch-up before September has even started. It's also worth remembering that first impressions in this league have a habit of being wrong in both directions. Managers who look assured in August have unraveled by Christmas before, and managers who stumble through their opening weekend have gone on to win the title the following May. Matchday 1 won't settle any of that. It will just give us the first honest data point, the first moment where months of preseason talk get replaced by something that actually counts in the table. So the question worth sitting with isn't who tops the table by Christmas. It's this: which of the 5 new bosses looks most like themselves by Monday night? And which one already looks like the appointment everyone will be second-guessing by October? Drop your pick in the comments, and if you want the Matchday 2 breakdown the moment it lands, make sure you're subscribed.